everyone, I'm Abigail, this is Megan, and welcome to another Two Kids Interview.
We are joined by graphic novelist Kayla Miller.
Kayla Miller has written the Click series, which includes Click, Camp, Act, Splash, and Crunch.
They also wrote the Click spinoff graphic novels, Besties, which includes Besties Work It Out and Besties Find Their Groove.
They also have a new Click book coming out in January, Break.
Thank you for being with us.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
You read children's graphic novels. How are your books influenced by your own childhood?
Yeah, so a lot of people ask if the main character is based on me, and she is definitely not. But some of the situations that she gets into are similar to things from my own childhood. I try to remember things that I felt really passionate about when I was that age. Like ACT is all about, fairness, and that was something that I really care about now still, but I also started caring about when I was like in second grade and only got like more passionate about. So I do try to take some influences from my own childhood, but I also try to think about how different life is now for people your age, because I feel like a lot of things have changed since I was a kid.
Write a lot as a child?
Yeah, I wrote and drew all the time for school, and then also, just outside of school, making up characters and stories. So yeah, that was one of my main hobbies as a kid, was writing and drawing, which also always kind of went hand in hand for me.
What is your process when putting a book together?
Do you decide the end before the middle?
Or do you put it together in order?
I usually do kind of know what I want the ending to be before I know the middle, and sometimes even before I know the beginning of a story, because I feel like the end is what a reader walks away with. Like that's probably the part you're going to remember the most. And for most stories, it's usually, the resolution of all of these storylines that are going on, and it's going to be bigger and impactful. So I usually do know how I want the story to end, and then I will kind of figure out what steps have to happen to take the character from the beginning to that ending, and to that, how they've changed over the course of the story to that ending. But when I'm putting a book together, I always have the entire story written in a script format before I start doing any of the artwork.
Can you tell us about a time where you were doing something and noticed someone or something and thought, I need to put that in a book?
I try not to take too much influence from people in my life, because I don't want them to read the book and then go like, hey, I said that. But I definitely have been inspired by, my friends when it comes to some of the characters, and also just kind of thinking about how my friends and family members have supported me and like made me feel, and trying to create that same environment for Olive when it comes to like, if she's stressed out, having her mom or her aunt talk to her, or, like a friend help her work out her ideas. But yeah, I try not to take anything completely and put it in the book, but I do have I am a Girl Scout leader, so sometimes I'll hear something that the kids say and I'll be like, wow, I wish I could just take that and write it into a book.
When you decided to become a children's author, did you worry at all if you could do it?
Yeah, so I did. When I first was thinking about doing Click, and I had been approached by the publisher to ask if I wanted to do a full-length children's graphic novel, they were pitching that they wanted me to write a book that was 200 pages. And I had written and illustrated comics before, but I had never written for that age group. And I'd also never done something that long. If I had added up all of the comics and all of the, like stuff that I had done on my own before that, it didn't even add up to 200 pages. And I had spent, years working on all of that stuff before then. So it was really intimidating. And like at first, I wasn't even sure that I could do it. I remember being really like anxious about it. But then, I talked it over with people in my family and with my friends, and everybody was supportive. And that made me feel better and made me feel like I could take a chance and try. And I'm glad that I did, because I really like writing for kids, and I really like writing in a long form graphic novel format.
After you finished your first draft, how much do you revise the book?
So I try to revise as I'm going along. So before I even start writing my first draft, I will usually write a summary where I kind of describe that as a book report for a book that doesn't exist yet. I'll just go through and talk about everything that's going to happen in the story, all the characters, their personalities, and really get that ironed out before I then write an outline where I'm going point by point and like with each scene saying what's going to happen in that scene exactly. And I'll do a lot of revision there. So before I even start writing the script. And then once I start writing the script, hopefully I kind of know how everything's going to go and it's easier. And then I'll do some revision on the script. And then hopefully by the time I get to actual finished artwork, I don't have to do much revision at all because I worked that all out in the earlier stages. Because yeah, the more detailed you get and the further along in the process, it gets harder to fix things just because you've spent more time on it. And also, the things start to connect more where it's like if you fix something on page 25, does that affect something that happens on page 65, So I try to do a lot of the revision early on so that it's easier later on in the process.
What do you hope kids will get out of your books?
Hopefully a lot. I like to try to tell stories about friendship and communication. So I like to kind of model those behaviors where it's, if you're upset, do you want to just hold all of that in and not tell anybody and, just feel bad in your room alone? Or do you think it's more productive to talk to your friends about it, or maybe even just journal about it or do something to get those emotions out? So I hope that, communication and also like expression are something that people take away from the books, as well as like how to be a good friend and maybe like how to be true to yourself when it comes to, not bending to peer pressure and also standing up for things you believe in. So I try not to be too heavy-handed with the messages because I still want the books to be fun, but I do hope that people take away, some of the messaging when they read the books.
In the book Besties Find Their Groove, there is a bit of conflict near the middle-ish end with two of the main characters. Was that sort of inspired by your own childhood?
Yeah, a little bit. I definitely feel like when you get super close to someone, and you spend a lot of time together, you're not going to get along all the time, even if you are really good best friends and you try to always be there for each other. Like sometimes you're just not going to see eye to eye, especially when you're both passionate about something and think that your desire kind of takes precedence, which is what happens in that book. They both have these goals that do go together, but then kind of start dividing. So yeah, that definitely happened to me a lot in my childhood where, I'd have a best friend and like even though we loved each other so much, sometimes we'd get into fights. But I think a good thing about that is like with a best friend or a sibling, even if you do fight, so long as you still love each other and you still care about the other person's emotions and the other person's thoughts, you can work through that, which the besties do.
There are a lot of authors and a lot of illustrators.
Not a lot of people do both.
Is it hard?
Is it hard to do both? It can be hard just because as somebody who, does have a series where I'm working on it primarily alone, though I do have some assistance. It's different for the different books. But the process now is basically I have somebody who, for the Click series, somebody who helps me do the word bubbles and somebody who does most of the coloring. And that's really helpful because those things take a lot of time and a lot of brain power to kind of figure out the best way to do them. But yeah, it can be hard to work alone because like you don't have somebody to bounce ideas off of all the time, which is something that I like to do with the Besties series. Like it's so nice to have Jeffrey and Christina, who when we're, thinking about characters, maybe they have a better idea than I do, and we can kind of work together to create the best version of the book possible. And everybody brings their own, brain and their own way of thinking about the world to the process. As where when I'm working alone, I've kind of just got one brain to work with. And also, yeah, it's just a lot of work to do. But I like it. I mean, I always wanted to be an illustrator. That was like kind of what I figured out I wanted to do when I grew up. And then realizing I wanted to be an author came later. So I can't really imagine just doing one or the other because I really like doing both.
Which one do you like to do more now, write or illustrate?
I think I still like illustrating the most. I mean, I really do like writing, and I like that through collaboration, I can tell more stories than I would be if I was just, doing the whole process myself all the time, just because the art takes so long that, if I was trying to do Besties and Click at the same time, I wouldn't be able to. I'd have to choose one or the other. Um, but I still really like creating, visuals. I like designing characters. I like designing the backgrounds. I like adding little things to the backgrounds that can help you understand the story more. Because it's almost like, making a whole movie by yourself, which is something I really like. That's how I like to think about it, because you're, designing the sets and putting all of the information that people need in the backgrounds to understand what the location is and maybe some things about the world. As well as, yeah, like acting through the characters and showing their facial expressions and their body language. And I just find that really rewarding to create a visual that has enough information that somebody could see a whole story in a drawing.
You could be any character in Scooby-Doo.
Which character would you be?
And why?
Oh, this is a question I've never been asked before. I feel like I feel a kinship to Velma, and I don't know if it's just because we both wear glasses and I understand the struggle of losing your glasses. I like that she's the smart one. I like that she doesn't really ever have to drive. So yeah, I'm gonna say I'd probably go with Velma.
What writer has had the most influence on you?
Oh, I don't know. I'm really bad at picking favorites when it comes to influences. Um, hmm. I I don't know if this, I think this influence comes through, but Mark Brown, the author and illustrator for Arthur, if you're familiar with the Arthur books and the Arthur TV series, I always really liked that world. And I feel like I try to bring that same kind of friendliness and understanding, but still, like he always kind of lets his characters make mistakes. Like even Arthur, the main character, like he's not perfect. Like sometimes he's mean to his little sister. Sometimes he doesn't really see his friend's point of view. But then at the end of the story, he kind of grows and, comes around. So I think that that's probably when I started the series, I was like, I want that kind of vibe, but maybe for a little bit of an older audience, because, his books are for younger kids.
What advice do you have for young people who want to write or illustrate?
So I have two big pieces of advice for people who want to write or illustrate. And the first is the basic piece of advice that I think everybody always gives, which is practice. It can be intimidating to start something, but the more that you do it and the more that you practice something, the better you're going to get. And you're going to get better every single time. Like you're going to learn something new about yourself. You're going to learn something new about the process. I can still see myself even getting better on the books that I'm working on. I can see my storytelling getting better. I can see my art getting better. So just the more you do something, the better you're going to get at it. The other thing is to kind of start small. I remember when I was in junior high and when I was in high school, especially, I would have these ideas for really big projects and really big stories. And I really wanted to, create these whole big epic things. And I think that sometimes it's better to just pick something small that you can finish. So instead of, writing an entire book, write a short story. Instead of writing an entire graphic novel, try to tell a comic book story that could take place in like 10 pages. And that way you can finish something, and it always feels really good to finish something. You can share that with other people and get feedback, and then you can take that feedback and use it for your next project. yeah, it's just something that you can finish. And I think that that's important because if you just keep starting these big projects and only getting 10% in, you're going to get frustrated and you're going to also not really have as much to show for all of the effort you're putting in.
That's big advice.
Do you also have a smaller tip? Something you do when you're writing or illustrating?
That maybe a lot of people don't.
I don't know if this is unique, but something that I often get asked what I do when I have writer's block or artist block. And my advice is always just to kind of step away and do something else. I feel like sometimes if I'm really, really stuck, I'll have my best idea when I'm either like, like cooking or going for a run or just doing anything else and not just sitting there and staring at my computer screen and wondering, why can't I have a good idea? I think that living your life and like feeling good will help you have better ideas rather than just kind of torturing yourself and feeling like you have to have an idea right now.
Do you have any other projects in the works that you can tell us about?
Yeah, so I can tell you that there is going to be another Click book after break, which I'm already working on. And there are some other things that I can't tell you about because they haven't been announced yet, but there's more coming in the future. But there is another book coming after break for the Click series. I can tell you that much.
Finally, it's time for our Turbo 10.
10 rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
I don't know, but we'll find out.
Let's go. Number 1, what is your favorite phrase to use?
My favorite phrase? I don't know. I feel like people always say that I say that's cool too much. I think that's my default phrase when someone's telling me something. I'll just go, that's cool.
Number 2, what is one subject you'd love to learn more about?
Science, I feel like I don't know enough about how the world works, and it's always really interesting to find a new science fact.
Number 3, what is your go-to snack food?
Ooh, I like fruit. I really like watermelon with like a little bit of tahini sprinkled on it, which is like spicy. It's nice.
Number 4, what was your favorite book growing up?
Ooh, I read a lot as a kid. I really liked the Chronicles of Narnia.
Number 5, if you could teleport somewhere right now, where would you go?
Oh, I would go to the beach. I haven't gotten to go swimming all summer, so I'd really like to go to the beach and have a beach day.
Number 6, if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Um, hmm, maybe telekinesis. I feel like that could be useful in a lot of different ways.
Number 7, what was your favorite cartoon as a kid?
I really liked Scooby-Doo. I really liked the original Teen Titans series. And Invader Zim were probably my big three.
Number 8, what's your favorite rainy day activity?
Reading or playing a video game.
Number 9, if you could have any 3 dinner guests, who would they be?
Ooh. Um, I want to just pick my friends because I feel like I haven't had a nice dinner party recently. But if I had to pick some famous people or people from history, I would love to have Charles Schulz, the creator of Snoopy. I feel like I could ask him a lot of questions. Maybe I'm trying to think. This is hard. Um, Lizzo, because I think she seems like fun. I don't know if they'd get along, but I think it would be an interesting dinner party. And then I'm gonna invite Jeffrey Canino, who is my partner and also my co-writer for the Besties series, because he lives at my house. So I feel like it would be mean not to invite him to the dinner party.
Number 10, what's the best piece of advice you were ever given?
That I was ever given. Hmm. I think probably know your worth, which I think is something when you start trying to make your passion your career, and that could be for anything. That could be for writing, drawing, it could be for um, like crafting, pet sitting, whatever you're doing. If it's something that you love, it can be really easy to undervalue yourself and kind of say like, oh, well, like this job isn't paying well, or I'm not getting, as much recognition as I'd want, but at least it's something that I really like doing. But I think it's important to know that if it's something that you can do in a way that you are doing, your best and you're bringing something special to the table, you shouldn't just accept whatever conditions and just be happy with what you're doing because, like you're worth it and you are bringing value. So you should try to make sure that you're getting respect and you're getting, like compensated fairly.
You did amazing.
And thank you for spending this time with us.
We can't wait to read your future books.
Oh, thank you so much. This was really fun.